the word, switch the bracelet on the word, switch the bracelet on the word, bracelet on the word.
Welcome along to our latest episode of The Word on Blake 7 with me, Steve Wraith, with Nick Held, with Dave Beanie and with Eric Moore, our special guest for this week from Blake 7 in Current. Welcome all. And no Lynn today. She is busy trying to get a ferry back home. And Graham is also away this week. So you are stuck with the four of us. But we are looking at our latest episode, and as always, I will go to the Bible, the old Bible, because as we know, Cult Edge are the current Bible, but the old Bible, the Old Faithful, the program guide. Now, I tend not to say plug your ears if you want to avoid a spoiler, because, you know, by now, when you're tuning into something like this, I think you've got to at least watch Blake 7 once. But if you haven't watched it, maybe, you know, make a cup of tea for this first couple of minutes while I just read out Series A, Episode 3, Cygnus Alpha. So what's the episode about? Blake, Avon and Jenna explore the ship Liberator, which they have just taken over, and establish contact with the master computer Zen, enabling them to fly the ship. They also discover the teleport system, which Blake uses for the first time when the ship arrives at Cygnus Alpha. A further discovery is a set of handguns of immense power. Meanwhile, the space transporter London has unloaded its passengers and lifted off again to return to Earth. The prisoners arriving on the planet are greeted by the priests and priestesses who rule Cygnus Alpha. Blake uses the teleport system for the second time in order to find the prisoners and rescue them. He leaves instructions that he is to be recalled within 4 hours. Blake discovers that the prisoners are suffering from a sickness which infects everyone who's on Cygnus Alpha for more than an hour, and he is told that there is no cure for the sickness apart from on the planet. Meanwhile, back on the Liberator, Avon and Jenna discover rooms full of clothes and immense hoards of precious jewels. Blake's attempt to release the prisoners fails, and he is captured. Vargas, the ruler of the planet, demands that Blake hands over his ship so that he, Vargas, can travel through the galaxy, spreading his religion. On the Liberator, Avon is trying to convince Jenna of the pointlessness of waiting for Blake. However, Jenna persuades him to wait, and with just a few minutes of the 4 hours remaining, Blake calls in for teleportation. After further argument, Jenna teleports Blake, Gan, and Villa up. However, she also unwittingly teleports Vargas, who reveals that the sickness from which everyone has been suffering is merely a passing thing and that no antidote is required at all. Blake teleports him into space, where he dies immediately. Zen then reports that some Federation pursuit ships are homing in on the Liberator, and Blake and the new crew begin their escape flight. So that is it. That is the episode in full. And as always, we will review it. We'll go through our usual topics of conversation. So, Nick, you are in the driving seat tonight. And I guess, you know, So that's the synopsis done. Give us your thoughts, firstly, on the storyline and the script, Nick.
Okay. I like the story. So my score, when we get to that bit, is a positive one. But of the 3 that we've watched, it's actually my least favourite. And for me, that's largely down to Brian Blessed being very Brian Blessed. He should be a little less blessedy for me. He's just a bit too OTT. I thought I like the storyline, the idea of them rescuing the prisoners, etc. But from a directional point of view, I thought some of the action sequences looked a little bit staged. There was a scene towards the end when Vargas sort of drifts back into the teleport just before he gets blasted out. It just looked so sort of deliberately set up. It could have, the director could have, Via Lorimer, I believe it was director. He could have made it look a little bit more natural. And there was a scene where Blake punches somebody. I think I made a note here. There's a fight scene at 45 minutes, and Blake throws a punch at somebody, and he looks like, and it's probably completely correct, that he hasn't ever thrown a punch in real life in his life. It just looked really, really poor, I think, from a fighting point of view. But the story overall, I do enjoy it. I just think, they could have toned down Brian a little bit and made the action sequences look a little less staged.
Okay, script-wise, good script, bad script, storyline?
I thought it was a pretty good script. There was some very good lines in it, as again we'll come on to later on. There's some sharp one-liners. I like the way Villa's developing his sort of witticisms and cowardice hand in hand. Starts to really sort of come to the fore in this one. What a little note on here. Oh yeah, the one thing about the script I did think was a plot hole. I don't know, but at some point in it, Blake gives Zen the instruction to fly to Earth colony ship Cygnus Alpha. Now, bearing in mind that Zen is a computer from an alien civilization, how would he know what Earthmen call Cygnus Alpha? It's not a universal name, is it? It's just something that the Earth people have
Google
called
Maps.
It. So again,
Google Maps.
Google Maps. Well, maybe that was it. Yeah. Google. It would be Google Space Maps, wouldn't it? If it's Terry Nation. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally speaking, I've got a positive view on it. I thought it was an enjoyable episode. There's just one or two bits that could have been done a little bit better.
All right, good stuff. Positive start, Dave. Obviously, people who watch the podcast regularly often, listen to what you want to say because you're not a fan of Blade 7. But the idea of having you on was to try and persuade you to be a fan, to try and persuade you otherwise. So, last episode wasn't the greatest for you. I've got to be honest, wasn't one of my favorites either. But what did you make of this one? The overall storyline and the script and the synopsis of this episode.
I'm in a state of shock really because I think Nick's turned into me,
but with a better accent.
Well, rather. I mentioned on the last podcast that episode 2 was so poor. I had to watch episode 3 to see whether I was going to subject myself to this torture. And I did say on the last podcast I enjoyed episode 3. And I really enjoyed episode 3. And all the things that Nick didn't like, I thought they were much better than episode 1 and 2. So it's it's just people's opinions, isn't it? But I thought the fighting was actually better than the previous episodes. I enjoyed the storyline. I thought the dialogue was much better. It was a bit more natural. It was more witty. And Brian Blessed, well, he was the best thing in it and the worst thing in it, But I really enjoyed episode 3, I must say, So it's the best one by far. I just hope it maintains, and it continues to be as good as episode 3 was for me. I noticed the director was different from episode 2, but unfortunately he comes back in episode 4. I've had a quick look, so I'm a bit concerned about the next episode. But this one I really enjoyed. I couldn't really fault it,
Okay, I mean the storyline obviously is as I always do, always read it out. It was something to get your teeth into. Nick's already mentioned Brian Blessed and his characterization in there, but believable characters, Dave.
What, Brian Blessed?
Well, yeah, you touched on as well. I mean, you said the best thing about the episode.
He's not believable in real life, so he can't be in a science fiction film, I thought the 3 main characters on the Liberator, I just thought their interaction was much better and was a lot more natural than I thought it was in the first 2 episodes.
Okay.
And I thought most of the acting was quite good in this one.
All right. Okay.
It was tight script, I thought it was quite good.
Good stuff, Eric. Good evening. Great to have you on, mate. And as I said, we're aiming to have a guest on here on each show. So before I ask you about the episode, just want to ask you a little bit about your podcast. How long have you been doing? Tell everybody the name of it, where they can find it first of all, and how long you've been doing it, and what inspired you to do it.
Okie doke. All right. So the podcast is Blake 7 in character. I have no idea how many years we've been doing it, but it's a lot. And we did it because Ian and I were massive fans of Blake 7. And my friends at Neozaz, they had already done Star Wars in character. And basically, I've just, followed their pattern of having friends sit down and talk about a show or a film that they love. And that's what Ian and I do. And yeah, I mean, we've been doing it for I don't know how many years, but
I can tell you, I've just done my podcast player. You started it in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 years. Oh, good Lord. Good Lord. But, it doesn't seem like 6 years because it's a joy to, visit the seasons one after the other, choosing a character, discuss it, move on to the next season and then reset and go again. And yeah, it's terrific fun. And it's a bit surreal to actually be on a different podcast to Blake 7 in character. And Ian's not with me. Very odd.
Well, I'm sure we'll get Ian on at some point. It would be great to have Ian on. And I know you'd offer these services kindly, but that would be great at some point. I'm just, I just want to say that your podcasts like yours probably inspired us to do this. We've all got an interest, and we just wanted to offer something slightly different, and give a different view and an alternate view. And this, that's down to people like yourself going out and doing your own podcast. So thanks for giving us the inspiration, Eric.
Oh no, you're very welcome. I mean, you three, it must be the same for you as it is with me and Ian. If you're talking about something that you enjoy and you're interested in, and you get on with your co-hosts, it's the most natural thing in the world,
Yeah, I mean, we love listening to Maximum Power as well. It's another one that I love. I mean, I kind of wait for them to get started again because it's been a long time, and mainly down to lockdown. You listen to a lot of podcasts and you start finding lots of different people. The guys in Australia, they're a big miss. They were part of my morning walks, and they've disappeared into the ethos, sadly, and they haven't continued theirs. But some good stuff out there. But everyone who tunes in, please make sure you get onto Blake 7 in character and subscribe on all the various places that you can find them. And they do have a wonderful Facebook page as well, Blake 7 in character. Get yourself onto there and like the page. So, Eric, back to the job you were brought here to do, and that is to review Cygnus Alpha. What's your views on the synopsis of the episode? Obviously, I've given. So, give us your views on the storyline and the script.
All right. I'll give you two views, if I may. Right. The first view is the view of the 16-year-old me who watched it, back in 1978.
Yeah.
And I can remember not liking this story at all because at that time, Star Wars was out in the cities. It wasn't out in the provincial towns. We had to wait until like Easter. And I knew this big science fiction epic film was coming. And here we're going to have, through the adverts, we're going to have the BBC doing a science fiction drama with a fabulous looking spaceship. And I can remember watching Cygnus Alpha for the first time thinking, I don't want to be down on this dingy planet. I want to be up on the Liberator, and I really didn't like this story at all. I can really remember that. But when it came out, and I didn't see it again until it came out on DVD. And watching it now, I watch it as a totally different person because, of course, I am. But it's a fascinating story to just see an embryonic Blake 7. This is very, very early days, and you see elements in this story that were never touched on again. And characters developing, potential crew members, because we didn't know whether Arco or Selman were going to be part of the crew. You just don't know. All you've got to go on is that tiny little box in the Radio Times to give you any idea of what was coming up. And looking back on it now, I just find it a very fascinating little snapshot of how Blake 7 was at the very, very beginning when they were trying to find their way with things. There's lots of things that we'll talk about in this recording, like, for instance, a few times it is mentioned about landing the Liberator, and I'm sure that is something that was in Terry's script before the the model of the Liberator was finalized, and potentially there was a ability for the Liberator in the script to land, you know. And it's things like that that I look at now, and it's like, this is all very interesting. And you know, Brian's been mentioned a few times already. It's also very interesting to see this proto Flash Gordon Brian, you know, because Brian, we touched on this. Ian and I, we do a Jerry Anderson show, and we talked about Brian when he was in Death's Other Dominion in Space 1999, you know, in 1976, which is 2 years before this story. And towards the end of that, he starts going a bit OTT, you know, and we were saying about, up until that point, Brian Blessed, he was a very respected Shakespearean actor. He was very well known on Z cars and such, and very much a straight, serious actor. But in Space 1999, towards the end, when he gets a bit maniacal, he starts going over the top. And I think here, you know, his character in this story is the stopgap between that and what we got, you know, 2 years later in Flash Gordon.
And when he was in Doctor Who as well.
He's a thespian, you know.
But it's good stuff. I mean, I think we've all come up with a positive. I enjoyed this episode. I've got to be honest. And you know, going back on those first two, not my favorite episodes, and even those were better than I thought. Again, I think it's the third time round for me from the original, the original days as a youngster, and then you know watching it back. Dave and I have been talking as well about the quality, you know, of DVD. The Blu-ray will be such a huge upgrade that I know I'm going to have to sit and watch these again. But I think this storyline was really good. I think the script's great compared to the first two that have gone before. And we'll get into the characters a bit more. But I do feel that the plot was really good in this one. Very simple. And the fact that we've got, we still don't know who the crew are. We know the ship's there. And we start seeing just this establishment of, you know, the relationship that Blake is going to have moving forward with the likes of Avon and with Jenna. And, you know, and it's great to see it. When you know what's coming, it does make it exciting because you think, right, okay, that's where that started. That's how that started. But as a whole, yeah, I enjoyed the actual script. Some great one-liners in it, as we'll come to later in the show as well. I thought it had
it was a good take on how religions use all sorts of crazy beliefs to control society, and that was very much reflected in this, wasn't it?
I would say cults as opposed to religions. I think almost like the David Koresh and Waco situation. It's like, you know, it's very, you know, lots of fibs being told, you know, just to keep people happy. But it was, and to keep the power, and you know, the fact that later on, you know, Vargas gets, you know, teleported up to the ship, and then, you know, we see this megalomaniac. He wants to go and spread his religion around the universe. I thought it was great. It gave us a beginning, it gave us a middle, and it gave us an end. And it had everything that you would want in the Blake 7 episode and a bit more. But we're learning a bit more now about what Blake wants. Because for the first episode, we don't know who Blake is. We hear this, we hear that. We know that he's been set up on trial, and you know we know that his reputation's been tarnished. He's clearly a big threat. You know, by the time we get to episode 2, he's clear of the drugs, and we see Blake, you know, the rebellious side of Blake, and he's a natural leader. So by the time we get to this episode, he's now got the most powerful ship in the universe. And what's he do with it? Instead of running away and going to search around the ship and find the jewels and the stuff that Avon and Jenna find, he wants to go and, you know, continue being the rebel that he's always been. He wants to shut the Federation down. So we this establishes what Blake 7's going to be for the rest of the series, and it establishes Blake's character. We know exactly what Avon is now. You know, he's a very clever guy who ultimately, you know, just missed out on carrying off the biggest robbery in space. And we know what Jenna's role in this is as well. And this is still quite a strong script for Jenna. But we do see the frailties of Jenna later on when, we see that she's clearly got a lot of affection for Blake. and she shows that, of course, when he comes back up in the teleport, she gives him a big cuddle, and again, the dimensions being established. So I really enjoyed it, and I thought the script was great, and direction was good as well, which we'll come to as well. But yeah, overall I enjoyed the episode. So I think it gets, even from Dave, it gets a resounding yes. Go on, Dave.
I was just wondering what Eric thought of it in comparison with the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, go on, Eric.
Well, the first 2, I mean, it's building up to the reveal of the Liberator, and you get the reveal of the Liberator, and it's like, hey, they're going to get on board the Liberator now, and then they're going to go off, and we're going to have fun, and we're going to have adventures. And then we end up on Cygnus Alpha, and it just like all the brakes went on for me, But I was a spotty little 16-year-old. What the hell did I know? I just wanted action. I didn't want character development or anything like that. I wanted to see spaceships, and I wanted to see aliens,
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. So moving on from the script and the storyline, and what we thought could have been improved. Let's talk about the director and the direction. What was your thoughts on that? And good evening to our young guests tonight, Nick.
Say hello.
Hi.
Hi. Is this the young footballing protege, Nick?
Are you the football? You've been playing football, haven't you? Did you score any goals? Yeah.
Well done, that man. Well done, that man.
Are you a Newcastle fan?
I am. I've got the top on. I have, yes. So I've had years of disappointment.
I'm a Newcastle fan.
Very good. You might have a bit more success than we do. Good stuff. So the director was Vera Lorimer, somebody whose name is quite significant with Blake 7, Nick. What's your views on Vera and the way that he directed this episode?
Well, like I said earlier, I thought generally speaking, it's pretty decent. It's good, but I thought the action sequences, as I mentioned earlier, looked a little bit staged here and there. And I thought there was a bit of clunky exposition sort of halfway through as well, where randomly when they're playing with the teleport, Jenna asks Avon, what do you think would happen if somebody got teleported to the maximum range? And I think they'd blow up. And lo and behold, what happens later? And I think that was just a little bit clunky. Didn't really need to be there. Or it could have been handled better if you are going to give that explanation. But no, it was good. I liked the scenes on Cygnus Alpha in contrast to Eric. I thought they were pretty decent actually, and they were filmed on a very, very important date. Having read Graham's book last week. They were filmed in Springwell Lock Quarry in Rickmansworth on my 12th birthday. But yeah, I thought he did a good job on the whole thing. He could have just, but it's like, because I teach a karate club, so I'm used to seeing people who either can or can't punch properly, and Blake can't. would be my summary. And so he should have been steered away from action sequences.
Yeah, I mean, I look at that, and I mean, obviously in the books it gives you an idea whether there's any fight coordinators and stuff. Maybe we're just slightly ahead of our time then, and they were relying on stage punches maybe, because we do know that Gareth was a very well respected stage actor. Maybe he was using stage punches for TV. That's down to the direction, of course. So Dave. Direction. You weren't impressed with the director from the last episode, and as you quite rightly pointed out, Pennant Roberts will be back to do Time Squad in our next episode. But Vera Lorimer, how did he fare for you?
As I say, I was very impressed with the direction of this episode, and I thought everything worked really well. I did think the fight scenes were better than we saw in episode 1, much better than episode 1. Still a bit clunky, as Nick says, but I can't really fault the direction. It was tight. Everything made sense. I didn't see any plot holes. Very happy with it. I hope this director's back later on.
Yeah, it plays a big part in Blake 7 moving forward. Eric, thoughts on the direction?
Well, I like the nice, gloomy gothic feel to Cygnus Alpha. I don't know if they ever have daylight on that planet because everything always is in darkness, isn't it? And this is of course, the very first alien planet we ever see in Blake 7, and it fits with the mood of the start of the series. So I like all that and all the bits with the prisoners and everything. That's all very good. I do have a problem with a couple of bits of direction. Nick was saying about the fight at the end. It's hard to work out who is where and who is doing what to who. We don't see the death of Arco or Selman. They're kind of like you see them kind of there. We said about it when we featured Kara on our show that it's very confusing how she dies, right? Because she basically calls out a line to Gan. Gan turns, kind of like moves out the way, and I think a spear that was meant for Gan hits her, but it's not very clear. It's
That's
either
right.
not well directed or it's not well edited. And then the big one is at the end when Vargas is teleported up to the Liberator. He arrives there first. Then Avon and Jenna teleport Blake, Gan, and Villa up, and Vargas is there. So Vargas must have been there in the teleport bay before Blake, Villa, and Gan are teleported up, or there's a second teleport bay. It's all very confusing.
Yeah, I would agree with you. You picked out a few things which I would have mentioned. I didn't like the one bit where they're trudging out of the area at the start. And Villa's doing his usual cowardice bit and shouting for Arco. I thought that could have been. I just thought it was messy. I thought we just needed one section of them trudging across the landscape. I don't know what Vera is doing with I don't know. I've never liked that bit, and it almost looks like a poor edit. I'm not sure whether it was a filler, whether it had to be certain length of time that episode, but I didn't like that little bit. Fight scenes, yeah, you can be critical of them. They're not the greatest. The bit where Blake trips and falls into the room and his bracelet comes off is always annoyed me as well, because I think, well, how did Blake get teleported back up? We've just got to assume and use our imagination that Blake managed to get the bracelet back on, because we don't see him click the bracelet back on. He trips when he goes into that room where Vargas is, and he's standing there with a gun and he's got the bracelet, and we know Vargas is going to get teleported up. And next thing you know, Blake's in the, like the point you've made, Blake's in the, they're all there together. I just thought that was a bit messy. We didn't really establish how Blake got the teleport bracelet back on. I didn't like this, almost comedy, the comedy fight scene where, people keep popping up at the table to try and grab a bracelet, and, people are jumping in left and right. It was just messy, it was messy. So I think on reflection, I think that could have been done a lot better. But other than that, there's nothing really to criticize. I think it was a really good episode. I thought the cutaways for the spaceships and stuff, with the London flying off, etc. Bearing in mind that some of the stuff we'd seen in the first two episodes was basic, I thought some of that stuff was a lot better. And of course, the director knew what he wanted, and I think the use of the cutaways was quite good. Maybe we didn't have to have the tiny little Liberator, where Vargas is looking up into the sky. It didn't look as convincing as the scenes we see of the Liberator, the full Liberator, which I showed earlier on. That one, when we get that, we know what it is, and we could have just had Vargas looking up, and but anyway, I'm probably being a bit too picky with that. But overall, I thought they did a really good job on it, and it was it flowed well, and like I said, some of the things that I picked out were probably things which maybe didn't have any control of in the edit at the end. But no, really good. So again, positive marks for the director and the direction. So we'll go on to special effects next, and costumes for this. We'll do it as a double, Nick. So special effects and costumes in Cygnus Alpha.
Okay. I think the one that stood out for me in terms of the look I liked, the special effect, was right near the beginning where Kara's on the planetary surface on Cygnus Alpha, and she's looking out, and there's that half there, that one there, the planet in the background. I thought that looks good. There was a couple of others. There was one where the London's flying on its way to Cygnus Alpha, which I thought was done pretty well, and the landing on Cygnus Alpha. But I think I'd pick this one that I've just you've got on screen there as the best one. The worst effect, I would say, was the similar one to what I picked last week. Actually, it's where London's flying over a planetary surface, and it just looks like a kebab. The planetary surface looks like a kebab going around on a spit. They use this pretty much either the same shot, replication of it as they did last week. So I thought that was the worst one. Costumes. I didn't particularly think there was a worst costume. I thought there's nothing stood out as being particularly terrible or bad to me, and I think. If I was having to pick one for best costume, I would say Blake. So it's your sort of classic Blake look, I think, and I'd give him the award for this week.
All right, Dave, thoughts on the special effects in this episode and the costumes in this one?
Well, special mention to the space rabbit at the beginning, because the guy was roasting the rabbit, wasn't he, on a spit, and. There must be really good rabbits to survive up there, you know. And if they're that tough, how did he manage to catch it? I don't know. What Nick just mentioned about the scene that he particularly liked with the planet in the background, that was really good. But what I've noticed on this particular episode is every time you've got a scene where it's horizontal, the sky's black. And every time they look up, the sky is absolutely full of stars and half a dozen planets. So there's no consistency there, but that's really nitpicking, really. I thought in general the special effects were much better than previous episodes. The planet's surface I thought was pretty good. I've got no issues with that. I really liked the computer in this Zen. I thought that was really well done. I'm quite impressed with that. It could have been a disaster, you know, going off episode 1 and 2. I did laugh at Leyland's pocket battleship that he uses to send messages back to Earth. It looked like he had a portable battleship game, you know. I couldn't quite understand what that was supposed to be. When he picked it up to hand it over to his colleague, I kept thinking the pegs were going to fall out. And I think that's about it for special effects. They were all pretty good. I like the concept of the guns. You know, I thought that was a good concept of the guns. And in terms of uniforms, outfits and things like that, not much to say, really. I did like Jenna when she got changed. I like a new look.
Yeah.
I thought that was quite good. And that's about it, really. I don't think I've got anything else down for special effects.
Okay.
Generally, improvement.
Yeah, general improvement. Eric, thoughts on the special effects and costumes of this episode?
Yeah, Dave's just reminded me this thing, you know, set out at the very beginning that you're not allowed to have two guns at the same time. That was dropped immediately, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see the point of that. Special effects. The best I thought was the landing of the London. Because you know I'm a miniatures guy, I'm a model maker and that, and I can appreciate a good piece of model work, and that is because you know they filmed it on film at Bray Studios. You know, I mean that is a I've got a replica. I've got a replica of the London, and it's studio scale. It must be what I'm holding my hands apart right now, and you can't see that. Oh, by the way, anyone who's watching this, you can't see me because I'm in the black hole from Dawn of the Gods. That's where I'm transmitting from at the moment. All right. But it must be about 2 feet long. But it was lowered down on wires. But, you know, the guys knew what they were doing. Ian Scoons was in charge of the special effects at that time. And he knew to make it look convincing, you had to do it on film at Bray using people who knew how to film miniatures and knew how to light miniatures, because that's crucial as well. So that looks terrific. The fact that it's nighttime, that really helps as well. That's a really good one. Steve, I've got to disagree with you. I really like the shot of Vargas looking up into the sky and seeing the Liberator, because it's well done. And of course, the Liberator is chuffing massive. If you've got a ship that big in orbit, you would see it from the planet, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Worst effect for me by far is the representation of negative hyperspace, which is basically blasting your actors with air, and then you've got some marbles falling towards the camera.
I've got that down as the funniest scene, actually. I'm going to mention that later.
Yeah, it's like that, isn't it?
It's ridiculous, and that's negative hyperspace again. Yeah, something again that's never ever mentioned ever again in the show is what the bloody hell negative hyperspace is. My other poor effect is Brian blowing up at the end.
Yes.
Where you get this as he goes, "A god," and you see him there, and it somehow echoes in space. He blows up, and then bits fall down, which is a bit disappointing. I don't know if these effects are actually going to be tweaked for the Blu-ray. I hope they do. You know.
Yeah, I think most of you have covered it. That's the downside sometimes of going.
Well,
go on.
Sorry,
go
Steve.
on.
There's one I forgot to mention. Just my notes are all over the place. Love, you know.
Yeah.
When they go down at the planet, you know, the crime scene outline of the bodies, I find a bit silly. I think the initial effect when they're transported is very good. And then when they land on the destination, it looks like just a crime scene, you know, a white outline of a figure. And then they appear. I didn't like that effect very much.
I wrote down about that.
You say that now, Nick.
Well, I wrote.
Let's see the notes.
It's here.
Here's my notes, Dave.
Teleport effect, good or bad? I quite like it, is what I wrote.
I love it. I love it.
I could understand why somebody wouldn't. So,
right.
I think. I mean, I struggle with the shoes that Brian Blessed's got on. I mean, the story about Brian not having the correct footwear for this. He obviously got a pair of shoes that were bought for him, which didn't fit. I think is the correct story. One of you might correct us on this, Eric or Nick. Graham certainly would know the story, but I'm pretty sure that I have read in one of the various publications that on the day of filming, Brian couldn't fit into the shoes that were provided for him and ended up wearing a pair of trainers. So, of course, now whenever I watch this episode, I do look at Brian's feet at the time that you see them, and he's got a pair of trainers on. Now, that is
space trainers.
Yeah. Well, his trainers. I don't think they're space trainers. But anyway, that is the faux pas I was mentioning on the last episode that I've noticed. I'm not a fan of the gun that they have as part of the the replica handgun that's there. I don't like that. The fact that it's lying there is like a homage to the past, and I just find that a bit bizarre. You know, they've gone to the whole effort of putting, this in, for instance. What's that? I mean, that looks like a Roman, some kind of Roman helmet on top. That they should have maybe gone with something a bit more medieval. That's what I'm saying, rather than having a gun which is clearly left from, like, the High Chaparral or something like that, or Bonanza. It just didn't feel right. That I thought overall, I did think that the special effects were a lot better. I did love the scene of the London flying away and being jettisoned at the back. I liked that. And I did like the interior of the London from all of the episodes, with the exception, the only thing that I didn't like was obviously the daft pipe, which came apart in the last episode. I just thought overall the London was brilliant, probably one of the best spaceships in Blake 7, throughout all 4 series. So I did like that. I love the guns. These guns are my favorite guns in Blake 7. There was something a bit different, and quite rightly you pointed out, the shoe jacked the idea in of not being able to handle 2 at the same time. And the teleport bracelets, as a kid, these were fascinating, bringing into this concept that you could just press a button and talk into it and hear people, I do always chuckle when Blake goes, hello, testing. It makes me laugh every time I hear that, like this, the theatrically trained Gareth Thomas doing that. But it's it's great that capture the young person's imagination. Guns that light up, a bit like the lightsaber in Star Wars. And a teleport system, which we'd seen on Star Trek anyway. And yeah, it's not as good as Star Trek. The outline of a character landing on on a planet. It's not as good. But how long are we in? 40 minutes in.
You can't say the word. Don't say
We did have issues with finances in Blake 7 Dave.
Go on.
I didn't say the word, Nick. I didn't say the word. I've written it down. There it is, budget. Okay, so yeah, overall though, the special effects were good, and costume-wise, not a great deal to talk about in this. Jenna, of course, discovering that there is other stuff. I thought Avon was probably the coolest character in this, dress sense-wise. Blake was any standards, and I thought, I thought Avon. I liked Avon's costume in this, and wasn't much you could say about those on the planet. So that wraps that particular section up. So we'll come to best actor, worst actor in this episode. So it can be a regular, it can be a visiting member of the thespian community. Nick, so who have you gone for your best actor and worst actor in Cygnus Alpha?
Okay, best actor on this one, I've given to Michael Keating as Villa. I just think his character starts to really come to the fore in this, in terms of what he grows into. This quick-witted but cowardly thief. I thought he was very good, and I'm afraid the worst actor, I would say, probably no surprise given what I said earlier, would be dear old Brian. If he'd just toned it down a little bit, I wouldn't have said that about him. But he's just too OTT for me.
Okay, simple answers from Nick tonight. Dave, best and worst actor in this.
Well, I'm not going to give you a straightforward answer on this one. I thought the three main characters were all very good in this. I thought this is the best I've seen Blake in the first 3 episodes. He seemed to be more natural, and I thought the other two main characters were very good. I still think Leyland was extremely good. Sort of very realistic within his part. It's a shame. I'm assuming he's not coming back, is he not?
No,
that's a shame. I thought he was still very good. And Jenna, I thought she was very good, especially her erotic scene where she mind bends with Zen. I thought that was very fetching.
Mind bends with Zen. You can get a t-shirt. You can get a t-shirt with that on, Dave. Create it.
I should have got a bigger laugh. Her erotic scene with never mind. But Brian Blessed. Well, he's just so funny, isn't he? Nick's quite right. He's completely over the top. I think he's been like that in every part he's done since the mid-70s, possibly. But I've seen him anyway. And Eric's quite right. He was great in the 60s, and then something happened to him. I don't know what. But for that, I thought although he was completely over the top, I thought it actually suited the role he was playing in this film. So there's bits of it where I thought he was brilliant, and there's bits of it where I thought he was rubbish. And he had this uncanny ability. If you close your eyes, he would start a sentence off sounding like Sir John Gielgud, and he would finish it off as Laurence Olivier. All in the same sentence. I just thought he was fascinating to watch. Yes, completely over the top, very hammy, but extremely entertaining. So there's your answer. A multitude of people really, and I think the worst actors in this were all the prisoners that didn't become part of Blake 7. That's it. Yeah, well done, Steve. all of these guys who don't end up joining the ship with Blake. I thought, uniformly they were quite poor. So there you go.
Okay, good stuff. Eric, your thoughts on the best and worst actor in this episode?
Okay, before I mention them, Dave's just reminded me of a scene or two scenes that we haven't touched on, because this is, embryonic Blake 7. The fact that they call Zen, because he says the word Zen, right? He never says his name is Zen. He just says something and then says Zen, and then everyone just assumes it's Zen. So that's a bit strange. And also the fact that the ship is called the Liberator, because it's an acceptable word that Jenna had in her head at that time. That's a bit weird as well, isn't it?
Well, she's feeling liberated. I was thinking, she was feeling liberated in the middle of this orgasmic scene where she mind-bended with Zen.
It'd have been a whole different show if shit was named something else, wouldn't it?
Okay. All right. Okay. So my two, my favourite, hands down by far, is Pamela Salam as Kara, because I think that shot you've got there, Steve. Nick was saying that's his favourite special effects shot. I don't see that planet. I just see, Pamela Salam, because, I've always adored her. She's fantastic in this. As Kara, she totally has bought into that religion. She doesn't doubt it for 1 second. It's all a sham, but I feel so sorry for her that, she buys it. She believes everything this Vargas is saying, doesn't she?
Yeah, definitely been hooked in. Lucky Gan, by the way, he certainly pulled out the long straw on the shot on this one. But yeah, definitely, she was great in this. She really was, and the fact that you're talking about her being influenced so heavily shows what a great job she did as an actress.
Yeah, brilliant. Worst, I'm sorry, it's got to be Brian, because Brian is brilliant. Even Flash Gordon, he's brilliant, and he's capitalized that forever onwards. You have him on a chat show, he is that persona now. But 3 episodes into this very serious, dark, dystopian science fiction series, to have him hamming it up and going into orbit himself before he even gets on the Liberator, it's just very jarring now to watch.
Yeah, he is over the top. Okay, well, I'll give you my feelings. Again, I think by a country mile in this episode, script wise as well, he was given the great lines. I think Michael Keaton's character really does come out in this episode. I thought he was wonderful in this, and it's all character traits we see. We see the cowardice from him. We also see, we see Villa kill somebody, which is something which you don't expect from this character. So we see, and again, we see that kind of, oh my God, what have I just done? But we know he's got it in him, so we know that he's a villain, and he's got the humour and the banter that he has with people. He's certainly one of the key manipulators, and we see his character grow. But I loved Michael Keaton's performance in this, and for me, definitely as one of the crew, the best actor in this. Got to give Peter Childs a mention as Arco. Could easily have been somebody who could have been a repeat character or used in the future. I would love to have seen Arco maybe he's got off the planet and be somebody who was maybe he's not part of Blake 7. I don't think he would have fitted in, but I think somebody who they came across at a later date. Who'd also managed to escape, I think would have been fantastic. But I did think that Argo was good. I've got to agree with there he is there alongside Michael. I've got to agree that the worst actors in this were the other prisoners. They weren't cast. They were extras, supporting artists at the time. So those people, unfortunately, not as professional as others. And again, that's what you get, unfortunately, in these kind of scenes. Pamela Salem was excellent, no doubt about it. She had a wonderful part, and she played it really well. Glenn Owen as Leyland, I would agree with Dave as well. The fact that he's got to go back now and face the music for all this botched stuff that's happened on his watch is a sad end to his career. And off he goes. And Brian was just typical Brian. And it's sad, really, in a lot of ways, that he became almost like a caricature of himself, because he carried on with the Flash Gordon and this, and now even doing TV interviews, he's that's what he does. When he's been out and about, he stopped in the street and has to say Gordon's alive, but he seems to be very happy doing that. So
wasn't he? Am I imagining it? Was he in the original series of Blackadder as well?
He was. He was Blackadder's dad.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
With mad hair.
Yeah.
You see him on I've Got News for You.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
He did an episode of that where he was really blind, bless it, I say. Ha, ha, ha.
He was really drunk.
Over the top.
Yeah.
So, Steve, you know, you agreed with me about the extras being poor, the rest of the prisoners.
Yes.
Do you think that was anything to do with the budget?
Possibly, but you know, you get what you pay for. Yeah, we've only mentioned it. I've only mentioned it once myself. That's you mentioned it. It's 1-1, Dave. 1-1 on the budget mention. Yeah, but you know, I could go through the whole cast again though. Just finishing with it. Avon and Blake. Wonderful interchange with them as well.
Yeah.
About and just the formation of those characters and what what they actually believe in. We actually got so much out of this episode. I know that's dwindling back into storyline and script, but we actually got so much about the characters. I thought, that was brilliant, in this episode, and I think it made it so easy for the actors. The script was really, really good for this one, and well done to all involved in it. So we always like to pick out the best line of the show, and sometimes we'll have a problem. Early doors, we've already discovered a problem on here because sometimes Nick doesn't write one down, which makes it even more difficult for Nick.
Once.
Well, no, but I just thought I'd see it and make it a bit of a thing, Nick.
That's a
Great one, well.
33% failure rate, Nick.
But the other thing is as well, sometimes there's a multitude of great lines. Sometimes there's not. There's one, and we all end up having the same thing. So I think I've managed to write a couple down just in case because I'm going to go last. So Nick, what is your favourite line in this?
Well, I wrote down 3 options here. I know which one. But, the first one was Villa when he sees Pamela Salem and he says, "I like God's taste in servants." That was then there was the interchange between Blake and Avon when they've discovered the guns, and he says it's a bit elaborate for a toothpick, and the reply was, "Well, it depends how elaborate the teeth were."
That's a great line.
The one I'm going for as best line was Villa's describing what he sees as the architectural style is early Maniac.
That's what I've got.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, did you just write one down, Dave? Now, that was yours as well.
Yeah, that was mine.
So you see what Nick's
Nick was greedy. He said he read 3 out. You see,
he's making up for the last episode. All right, Eric, your favourite line in this episode?
I've got the one, and I've written it down, and I've chosen this one because it sets out, the rest of the series, right? And it's from Avon to Jenna, and I'm going to read it. Okay, he says, "He's a crusader. He'll look upon this as one more weapon to use against the Federation, and he can't win. You know he can't win. What do you want to be, rich or dead?" And I think that's fabulous. That encapsulates Avon's relationship to Blake, and it predicts pretty much what's going to happen to all those characters in the future, doesn't it? And we're only 3 episodes in.
100%, yeah. I picked that one as well, but I did also go for the end line of the episode, which again, is significant and backs up what you say, which is they'll keep coming, pushing and trying. They will never give up, which establishes the fact that the Federation won't give in their chase, because obviously for the first time on the screen, we see the pursuit ships, coming for the Liberator. So we know now, what the story is going to be. We know what Blake's 7 is going to be. We haven't got the 7 yet. And, we're going to get the 7, of course. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. We learned so much from Cygnus Alpha on another watch of it. You realize this is quite a key episode, moving forward. So, yeah, great stuff. Wonderful to hear your views. And if you've got views as well and you're watching this on catch up, leave them in the comments below the video. So all we've got to do now before we finish is give this a ratings out of 10, Nick.
Okay, so the previous 2 I gave the same score, which was 7, and as I said earlier, I didn't like this as much, mainly because of Brian Blessed. So 6 out of 10 for me, which is still above average, but not as good as the previous 2 for me.
All right, Dave.
Well, I think I scored episode 1 is 4, episode 2 as a very, very generous 3. And I'm going to give this a 7.
Oh,
That's how
Wow.
much I enjoyed it.
The worm is turning. The worm is turning,
Oh, no,
viewers.
let's the jury's still out. I'm sure episode 4 will let me down again, but episode 3, really good. That director's back next time. That's what I'm concerned about.
That's what you're concerned about. And Dave, with that score in mind, can you just tell us what you've got to your right-hand side, Dave, today?
I've got the box set of Inspector Morse, and it's a subliminal message to somebody online who suggested I should be watching an Inspector Morse thing and doing a podcast on that instead of Blake 7. So that's why that's there. And the Star Trek is just to take the piss out of Blake 7 because it's Star Trek and it was better.
Okay.
Blimey.
Would he give a 7 out of 10?
Let us coming in.
He gave a 7. He gave a 7 out of 10. He had a bit of criticism, Nick, this week. That's what it is. But he gave a 7 out of 10. So there we go. It is an improvement. That we might have gained that viewer back. Eric, your marks out of 10, please, sir.
I'm sticking with Nick with 6. If this was out of 10 for season 1 stroke A, it might be a bit different, but I've got to think about all the other stories that are to come. So yeah, I'm happy with a 6 with Nick.
Okay, I will give it a 7. It is one of my one of my favorite episodes. I've got to be honest. I do like this one. I haven't let Brian Blessed put me off, to be perfectly honest, over the course of time. But I will give it some might say it is a generous 7, but I do enjoy this episode. So yeah, great stuff, and wonderful to have you on, Eric. So just give us one more plug for where people can find you and where they can find your podcast. We'd love to have you back on, by the way, and I'm sure it'd be nice to get you and Ian on together as a combo to review something. But give a shout out to where people can find your podcast.
Okie doke. So our parent company is neozaz.com. That's where you'll find us and all the other shows that Ian and I produce. We're also available on iTunes and Spotify and all good podcast providers.
Great stuff. So we will be back, hopefully with Lynn again next time. We're going to be reviewing Time Squad. Yes, Dave?
Can we start a crowdfunding page for Eric to get the electric switch back on?
Eric
No,
told me he wasn't
Dave.
going to come on screen.
Dave, I've got a face made for podcasting. Leave it at that, all right?
Well, so Stephen, it doesn't stop him. Look.
Hey!
True.
Very good, very good. Look forward to catching up with you face to face at some point as well, Eric. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and look forward
Thank you
to
very
getting you
much.
back on again.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for taking it. We are going to have Neil Shearer from the Vindictus Novel podcast and Facebook group, coming on. They've done some wonderful stuff. So he will be coming on to the next episode. And hopefully we will have Lynn, and we will also have Graham back with us as part of the crew. But for now, it is over now from us. Take care. See you soon.
Bye.
The word. Switch the bracelet on the word. The word. Switch the bracelet on the word. The word. Switch the bracelet on the word.